the issuance of 64.1 million in new bonds at a maximum rate of 7.5%. That is A. And on the B, it says the reissuance of EC 477.3 million in fixed rate notes and bonds through the regional government securities market and private placement at a maximum rate of 7.5% interest. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to raise bonds and in the amount. So I did a quick calculation. In just that one sitting of the House, over $540 million in bonds was raised, or permission was given to the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. What is more alarming is that these bonds are coming in at a very high rate, 7.5% interest rate. Now, I want St. Lucians to understand. If you are doing well financially, you can negotiate better lending terms, or the terms for borrowing can be better. So, it is obvious to me that the regional market does not have confidence in the performance of the economy of St. Lucia that they would require in order to sell these bonds on the regional market to go at 7.5%. I mean, this is telling me that the average St. Lucian can now go to a bank and get a loan at a better rate than the government of St. Lucia. And that is very telling about the performance and the confidence that is being shown in the economy. But to put it in perspective, so you are borrowing 540 million, 541,400,000 to be more precise, at an interest rate of 7.5%. You know what that works out to be? $40 million in interest a year. 14.6 million to be more precise. Which means that you are paying 3.4 million interest every month. So if you roll over these bonds for 3 years, that is another 120 million in interest payments that is being added to the debt burden of this country. And then the Prime Minister is boasting about his management and his performance. Now, we are not talking about new loans, you know. We are talking about the 64 million that is just to meet obligations under the some obligations under the present budget, and the other 477 million is rollover. And I will tell you, when Sir John managed the economy under UWP government, he had a sinking fund set in place that when these debts became mature, you would have the means to be able to pay. Under the last Alan Chasney-led UWP government, we had re-established the sinking fund and there was some monies going into it. Since the new government came in, we don't know what has transpired. Now, so much just for the borrowing. We heard the Prime Minister trying to explain to the people of St. Lucia the GPH deal by not saying anything. Now, I don't know how you explain to a nation without saying anything. And I will paraphrase what the Prime Minister said. He said he read every line of the agreement. I don't know how good his English is, and I don't know how good his comprehension is. Because obviously, on several occasions, he continued to miss out on basic geography, on basic things that you ought to communicate clearly that he has failed. So when he says he personally had to read every line and to be satisfied that the arrangement entered into was beneficial to the people of St. Lucia. Now I want to ask every right-thinking St. Lucian, you really believe that the government would do something that is so beneficial to all St. Lucians, and it would be the best kept secret in 2024 in St. Lucia? A government that is known for boasting and bragging about nothing, far less to have gone into an arrangement that would benefit the people of St. Lucia, and it is still a secret? And the Prime Minister said it is in an SI. Now, an SI is a statutory instrument of a decision made at the cabinet level, and then it is written in an SI form and presented in the parliament. It is never debated. You don't debate SIs. Most of the SIs, all the SIs come out of previous cabinet decisions. Now, we have to wait for the SI, and I know the SI would be limited in its information. So the statutory instrument that I just read there to you, it gives you very basic information. It doesn't give you a breakdown. It tells you we are borrowing 477 million at 7.5% interest. That's the extent of the information that's in an SI. So is that what the Prime Minister is waiting for, to give an explanation to the GPH deal? Now, I will give you some stats, and I don't only hold the Prime Minister accountable for what has happened with GPH. I think the board of SLASPA is equally responsible. They are there by virtue of being selected on the basis of positions that they hold and not necessarily political appointees. For a board of SLASPA members made up of what is supposed to be the elite prominent St. Lucians to sit and agree with a government on an arrangement like what we are hearing about GPH is cause for major concern. I don't want to believe that the members of the board of SLASPA is doing that for the stipend of $250 that they receive for every meeting of the board of SLASPA that they attend. And I believe it is time that the media publishes the names of all of the people who serves on the board of SLASPA and what qualifies them to serve on the board of SLASPA. Because here's what I will tell you. In 2019, we had over 750,000 cruise passengers in St. Lucia. Paying a fee of $5.50 US per passenger, it means that you are making over $4 million US a year just in the head tax. Also, that would add up to over 11 million EC dollars that the government or SLASPA was collecting per year. We have heard from the report that I read on GPH that they expect in the medium term to go to 1 million passengers. Now let me break that down. a 30-year deal with a 10-year extension, I would assume that if my maths is right, the medium term would be between 15 and 20 years. 15 years would be the medium term of 30 years. And if it goes for the extra 10 years, it would be 20 years. If you expect to take the passenger arrivals to 1 million passengers in the medium term, are we to wait for the next 15 years to get to 1 million passengers in St. Lucia? Now here's what the government has given up. So you've given up the $5.50 that you are collecting from every passenger for the possibility of GPH increasing the numbers of passengers to 1 million. That would make it an increase of 250,000 from where we were in 2019, which only amounts to 1.3 million or 3.7 million EC, 1.3 million US, 3.7 million EC. I also have to ask, what has been given to the bank for security by GPH? Because according to the SLASPA Act, we should not be mortgaging or giving our ports, our airports, our terminal buildings as security. And we know that every time you go to the bank for a loan, they want certain guarantees from you. Will the Bank of St. Lucia, who is the lead bank, give a loan to GPH of 40 million US dollars without any security? So if the company, which already shows signs of having financial difficulties, were to default on paying the loan, what recourse would the bank have? And that's not the first time Bank of St. Lucia has gone into these arrangements. When Club St. Lucia was established here, this company got over $100 million worth of loans, and most of it had to be written off. While the poor St. Lucians who cannot pay a loan, their vehicles are taken and packed into a pound, or their houses are taken and sold in an auction. But these companies from overseas can come in, borrow our monies from our banks. This is that, look, the betrayal again. When Cabot came here and did not go and borrow money from a local bank, went and borrowed money from NIC at a very reasonable interest rate and gave NIC land that was worth more than 3 times the loan as security. The Labour Party made noise that our money should not be used. Foreign investors should come in with their money. Well, why didn't GPH come with its own money? Why are they going to our local banks? So if the business goes belly up, St. Lucians are left with the blade while they are holding the handle. They are safe, and St. Lucia is the one in trouble. So I want St. Lucians listening and following us to understand that what the Prime Minister said to us is no comfort. I don't trust the Prime Minister's ability to negotiate. I don't trust his ability to come and explain to me what he read. Let me read for myself. Let me see what the contract says. And let me determine that it is a good deal for us in St. Lucia and not what the Prime Minister says. So I was explaining that GPH now, if they increase to 1 million passengers, would only increase to 1.375 million US, or 3.272 million. And we are only going to get a percentage of that. Now, how difficult it is for the Prime Minister to come and tell the media when he was questioned. Well, I can tell you the basic guidelines of this arrangement with GPH is a 60-40, a 30-70, an 80-20, a 50-50. Tell us. At least we would know, we can do the calculations on the number of passengers and know how much money. So you're giving up 5 million US or 4.1 million US with the possibility of getting a percentage of 1.375 million US. What kind of maths is this? Who is the madman that would tell me that I am already guaranteed I have my $4 million in my hand? Give it to somebody to hold for me, to collect for me. And I agree with the callers who said that Rick is wrong about his assessment that GPH is a tenant. Tenants don't collect money. Tenants pay money. Landlords collect the money. So there's no way GPH could just be a tenant. They are either a shareholder, a part owner, a management company or something, but there's no way they qualify as a tenant. I have a property renting, and my tenant who is renting the property from me is the one collecting the money. And basic English at primary school level would tell you that does not make sense. But both the Prime Minister and the CEO of GPH tried to fool the people of St. Lucia into believing. So if we own the port, how can I not know what agreement you entered into on my behalf? So when you just tell me, well, St. Lucians own the port. On paper, that may be true, but in reality, it's not so, because GPH owns the port for the next 30 years. That's the bottom line. It may not be an outright sale, but they own it. I want to also highlight that giving up the cruise port in Vieux-Fort of home porting, we were guaranteed 75,000 passengers a year with a home port in Vieux-Fort. Remember, every passenger who comes into St. Lucia would be paying $98 US. So think of 75,000 passengers at 98 US is already 7 million US, which is about 20 million EC dollars. So in going into the arrangement with GPH and stopping the development of Port Vieux-Fort as a home port, the government of the Labour Party has cost St. Lucia 20 million EC a year. And if you multiply that by 10 years, that's 200 million. And if you go for 30 years at a fixed amount of passengers, that is an additional $600 million that SLASPA would be collecting that have been given up by this government. So, Mr. Prime Minister, your explanation is inadequate. Your reading does not suffice for the people of St. Lucia. You have to make this document available to the people of St. Lucia. Let us see what the fine print of this detail of the details of this agreement, because every investor understands what we call ROI, return on investment. Anybody who comes into a market, any investor who is worth the money that he has, will want to know what his return on investment is. Now here's what the Prime Minister said, to paraphrase the Prime Minister. You are going to fix our port, you are going to spend the money, and you are going to pay us. That's what the Prime Minister said. Now I want every St. Lucian to understand that is a lie. He's not paying us. He's collecting our money. He's using our money to fix the pot. And he will give us what is left over as he chooses. And I challenge them to prove that what I am saying there is not true according to the agreement. Because you are not speaking to dummies in this country, Mr. Prime Minister. If you choose to be a dummy yourself, then you go ahead and be a dummy. But the rest of us are not. And you cannot tell me that an investor comes to St. Lucia, spends his money, fixes the pot, and is paying us. So you telling me he's coming to pay us to work for us? Who is foolish enough? Maybe only you and your government, your cabinet of ministers, would be foolish enough to believe this. Any investor who comes here, the minimum return on investment they begin with is 20%. So after he has collected our money, he has spent our money, he's going to take a 20% on top of it minimum for himself, and if they have anything left, that is what we would get. Today, you said he took over the loan of Slasper. You don't know what the loan of Slasper was for the extension of the Point Seraphin berth? But he has a right to take over the loan because every cruise ship that will anchor at Point Seraphin henceforth, GPH will be the one collecting the money. And I want St. Lucians to understand, this is a complete sellout by this government, as we have seen in so many instances. They lied to us about Cabot. They made noise about Cabot. Cabot is now the best project in St. Lucia. GPH, we, the United Workers' Party, we had negotiations with GPH, and we said to GPH, if you want to operate in St. Lucia, go and build a port in Vieux-Fort. We already have an established port in Castries. We don't need you to build a port in Vieux-Fort. And everybody who understands the economics of it would know that if you have these bigger size ships coming in, Vieux-Fort is the better port to send them to because it is better to handle. So I'm appealing to St. Lucians to begin to demand answers from the government. They said we own the port, they are the managers or they are the landlords. The government is behaving as if it's a real estate agent, and the real estate agent will collect a commission. It only looks like those collecting the commission on GPH is not the people of St. Lucia. The secret deal that the member for Soufrière spoke about, Honorable Emma Hippolyte. What is the secret deal for Soufrière? What is the meeting that she had? Was it on a private yacht she went for the meeting and made a secret deal? How can a minister of government make a secret deal with the assets of the people of St. Lucia? These are relevant questions that the present government must answer. Thank you. I now hand over to my colleague, Mr. Montoute, who will deal with other subject areas for this morning.
Thank you very much, Deputy Political Leader Guy Joseph. And let me say a special good morning to members of the media, to those of you listening to us live in the diaspora and here in St. Lucia. This morning, let me take the opportunity to wish St. Lucians a happy Jazz Week. And after you have reveled in your jazz, we have to return on Monday to the realities of daily living. And let us not allow our government to dazzle us with events, because the realities, the stark realities that confront us are very daunting. We were told by our Prime Minister that he was the most readied. He stopped short of telling us readied for what. But about 3 years into his administration, we are beginning to see that he is ready to bury the country in debt, that he is burying St. Lucians with high cost of living and inflation, that we are living in a country in fear, fearful for our lives, that our security and freedom has been compromised. And of course, the economy of St. Lucia, it seems as if he is ready to destroy that as well. And I say so because we have made an appeal to the Prime Minister to take into consideration the plight of St. Lucians, but we see more and more, and especially in this last budget, the policies of this government is providing no reprieve to St. Lucians as far as high cost of living, inflation is concerned. And we are seeing no signs that there will be growth in the economy. I say so because, of course, he has presided. The cost of bread has almost doubled, and that is because, one, that was justified by the high gas price, and two, the removal on flour. Now, a government that is collecting in excess of their projected taxes, you would think that if they're in the interest of the people, if they really care about the people, that would somehow redound to the benefit of the people. But no. After taking away your disposable income with the high taxes, they have reduced the subsidies, further compounding the hardship that you face in 3%. In St. Vincent, next door to us, it is about 6%. Now, is there something that they know that we do not know? Well, I will say to you, the answer is bad management on the part of the most readied Prime Minister. That is what is causing the situation that we are facing. I also want to mention, too, that we have the second highest inflation rate, which means cost of living in St. Lucia is the second highest in the OECS as well, second only to Antigua. But we know that Antigua is better than it is in St. Lucia. And I am sure that the government in Antigua have taken measures in St. Lucia, whereas the government in St. Lucia pointed out the implications it has for everything else. But almost every household in St. Lucia utilizes LPG, that is cooking gas. We are calling on the government to return the subsidy to what it was. And let me just mention that in terms of the subsidies on cooking gas, it was reduced from 1924 to 1616. A reduction is passed on to us, the consumers, so that we can get some reprieve in the high prices that we are experiencing here. And stop lying to St. Lucians by telling them that the inflation that we are experiencing is important. Some of it is imported, yes, but it is further exempt for it, and that something must be done to provide some reprieve for us. I will stop there and allow for questions from the media, if there are any. As usual, could you please state your name, your media house, and ask your question. You may direct your question either to Mr. Joseph or myself. Well, the Prime Minister has to come out and provide.
What was the exact comment by the Prime Minister? You recall? Mhm. 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 So if the amount stated in the estimate is wrong, then who prepared the estimate? Who presented the estimate? Now calculations are simple, you know. So here's how we calculated based on what the Prime Minister said. The previous spending by the previous administrations, and that included the Stevenson King-led administration and the Kenny Anthony-led administration. They had spent just a little over 130 million on St. Jude. In the new budget, there is 265 million allocated for St. Jude. So simple mathematics would tell you 130 plus 265 gives you 395 million. How is that such a complicated figure for the Prime Minister to understand? Because, and if he said, and I understand the Prime Minister's maths, you know, I know what his 3 words means. So when he says 3 words and he counts, if that's the same maths he does for the economy of St. Lucia, we are in trouble, you know. Because we did not invent these numbers. So if the Prime Minister is saying that 265 is wrong, why is it in the estimates of revenue and expenditure for this financial year that the cost of the project is 265 million and about 65 of it is allocated to be spent in this financial year? So if anybody is wrong, it's the Prime Minister who's giving wrong information. The information that the leader of the opposition, Alan Shasney, gave, in fact, he went below the price that it actually works out. Because it is much closer to 400 million on the same side of the House in Parliament. And they are the 3 Prime Ministers who are responsible for the fiasco we have at St. Jude. What started out as a $28 million project, and I want St. Lucians to remember, Kenny Anthony said, for 65 million, we would have a state-of-the-art hospital. He left office having spent more than double the amount he said, and the hospital was not 50% complete. And I also want people to remember, the United Workers' Party under Alan Shasney kept on saying that the cost of this hospital is going to be more than building a new hospital. If we had to spend 100 million to fix an 80-year-old building, it was money being badly spent. You are better off spending this $100 million in building a new hospital. And I want the media to go back to the Mac Heinekat, go back to John Peters, go back to Minister of Foreign Affairs and member for Labrie, who all gave their figures, Chemico and Payne from the member for Labrie, 5 to 20 million from John Peters. But today, the same John Peters can be on a company that is going to build the halls of justice at 5,000 EC per square foot. And I want every St. Lucian to understand. That is the average size of a square foot. So every piece of the building, the size of that sheet of paper, will cost us $5,000. These are the men who turned around and criticized the good work that was being done by a UWP government, because we said we could not go and fix this building because we would not know what it would cost to fix the building. We had estimated that it would be over 100 million, and we have been proven more than correct, because the very estimates in the budget is showing that the price has more than doubled what we said. And that's why I always say to people, time is the revealer of all things. And all of us may not live to see the true revelation of all things, but this saga at St. Jude will come, people will come to realize who was right and who was wrong. But it would have cost this country a good $400 million before we realize who is right and who is wrong. You see, just as we have given up the pot and we have given up $1 billion or more, by the time people would realize that, it would have cost us over $1 billion. And that is what happens when you have incompetent people in government. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much to those following us on social media, in the diaspora, and those from the local media. It's always a pleasure to have you share with us. And like the song says, they say, is Alan do this, Alan do that? Alan did all the good things for St. Lucia. Thank you.
Let me also express my thanks to members of the media and to those of you listening to us. And let me take this opportunity to invite viewers and listeners to join the United Workers' Party at the round table tomorrow evening, where we will hear from our senators, and our moderator will be Laura Jean-Pierre. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks once again. And let me just say, talking about who did this and who did that, the economy of St. Lucia was well poised to be among the leading economies in the Caribbean, second only to Guyana, where they found oil. But in St. Lucia, we found a good leader in Alan Chasney. I thank you.